Hello, welcome back to my mental health and crime channel. My name is Huda London. I'm a licensed cognitive behavior therapist and a licensed mental health counselor. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy the contents in this channel. I would like to start by thanking all my subscribers for all the support and all the kind and thoughtful and interesting and very wise comments you leave in the channel. I really do appreciate each and every subscriber of mine, and I appreciate everyone who takes time to even watch my channel. Today I'd like to go back to the important missing case of Summer Moon Utawels. Summer is a 5-year-old girl from Hawkins County, Rogersville, Tennessee. Summer was reported missing by her mother Candace Bly Wells and her father Donald Wells. She was reported on the 15th of June at 6:29 p.m. A wide search was put out for Summer. Ben Hill Road and the creek and all those areas was closed down so that the TBI, Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, could make sure that nobody comes in or goes out of those properties, just in case Summer was abducted. Today, I would like to actually analyze a very important interview. This is for entertainment purpose only. So I'm not saying that I will be on point, but I saw a lot of red flags with this interview. And it is an important interview. I just came across it now. It is the interview with the real Andy B. For those of y'all who do not know, Andy B, that's Andy Brennan, I believe, is the ex-partner, or maybe still the partner, of Jody Sue Brown. Jody Sue Brown and Andy were the neighbors of Summer Moon Utawels. 2 or 3 weeks ago, Jody Sue Brown heard that Andy was coming up on a panel. So she started saying some things that are really heartbreaking. We don't know if it's the truth yet, but it sounds like there was something there. She basically said that Summer Moon Utawels and her brothers were being drugged. She said that they were being given drugs or pills so that they were sedated, and she said that the children were beaten. She said that she heard that through Andy, and she was acting like a victim, saying that, oh, I wish I knew about it earlier. Andy should have told me, and it's sad that it's coming out now. I will say my opinions later on about what I exactly feel about that. Oh, it's so hot, guys. I'm sorry, it's so humid in UK, United Kingdom, London. Basically, I was watching this interview with Andy, and I think I'll have to do a couple of clips to analyze it, since it's such a interesting, long interview full of red flags. I hope the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation have watched this interview, which I'm sure they have, if Andy isn't a suspect, he should become a suspect immediately. The reason I say that is, to start with, there's clearly, so he's not sitting alone in a room. Somebody's sitting opposite him on the left side of him. I can see that clearly, and that is my personal opinion. As a CBT counselor, we do a lot of active listening, and we watch people's behavior, because behavior is really important in counseling. A client can say something and mean totally the opposite. Cognitive behavior therapy is about your thoughts, positive thoughts leading to positive emotions and feelings, which results into positive behavior. So we try to work with people so that they can organize their thoughts and that they can start thinking more positive instead of negative, because negative thoughts brings negative emotions, which leads to negative behavior. That is what CBT is about. We usually work with people who have depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and many other mental disorders and mental issues. We even work with couples counseling, child psychology, and many different branches. Okay, let me start with Andy. The interview started a bit with them introducing themselves, and Scott said that 15th of June was the longest summer day. Sorry, but I have to correct that. As soon as I heard it, I knew it was wrong. It's clearly the 21st of June that is the longest summer day. I remember that way back in primary, secondary school. What I find interesting before I go to the interview of Scott and Lean on Me and the real Andy B, I would like to talk a bit about the 15th of June. 15th of June is actually an important day for the Seventh Evangelist Church. I read that, I'll never forget, when Summer first was reported missing, maybe a couple of weeks later, but we all were trying to avoid interfering in the church. Nobody wants to make it about religion. But what I personally believe is, if we are going to search for Summer, the truth has to come out in all kind of ways. Basically, what I mean is, we can be mindful, we can be professional, and we can do our research about everything that was involved in Summer's life. I'll give you an example. I am a Muslim. I have respect for every other religion. I've grown up in a British boarding school where we had Sunday schools, and we were practicing Christianity, which isn't too far from Islam. So I do know a lot about what I've learned in Sunday school. It was mostly the Protestant faith, but I do know a lot about Roman Catholics. I do know a lot about Buddhists, about Islam, about many faiths. So the reason I said that is, what I'm trying to say is, if Summer Monu Wells and the Wells were Muslims, example, I would have still tried to research a bit about the mosque. If they were Buddhists, I would have tried to research a bit about the temples they go to. If they're Jews, I would have checked the temples that the Judaism people go to. If they're Christians, obviously I would check the church they go to. Since it's 13 months and we haven't heard anything about summer, I believe we have to go into every rabbit hole. So guys, I'm being mindful and I hope you'll do understand that this has nothing to do with faith. But I find it very interesting if you'll Google up 15th of June. I just wrote it here, wait here. The 15th of June is a leap year for the Seventh Evangelist Church. It's called the Gregorian calendar. The 15th of June is an important event for the Evangelist Church again, because it's a leap year and it's 199 days left for the year to end. Then I checked the 15th of June. Again, it is the day of wind and energy. Wind and energy is power. Interesting. 15th of June, what they mean by the wind is the wind and energy is powers and possibilities is the event for them. So I found out that to be a bit interesting. The reason I checked is just to see if there's any relation with that day and the Evangelist Church. So they do have events on that day. I'm not saying that it has something to do with the church, but I find it interesting. It's a power day, the wind power and new possibilities that the wind brings. Now what I found, already I'm at actually 32 minutes and 27 seconds at the round 2 of the real Andy B. This is what I personally noticed while I was doing my cognitive behavior skills. Andy said that he came home at the start, he said 6:15. Then later on, he said between 6:20 and 6:30. Remember that, guys, and watch it properly, because I don't want to show that interview because I haven't asked permission to use the interview. So I don't want to be flagged up by YouTube. When he said that he came home at 6:15, then he said later on he believes it was 6:20, 6:30. The first huge red flag that I found out is if he came home at that time, he said law enforcement was there. Go back and listen to that. Now that is a red flag in itself. The reason of it being a huge red flag is someone was reported missing at 6:30 sharp. You can check it on the website of the TBI. And I hope the TBI is following this interview really well, because I think this is a real important interview. He said that he saw law enforcement there at 6:30. No, he said he came home at 6:20 and law enforcement was already there. That is wrong. Law enforcement and the 911 dispatcher showed it was 6:29, 6:30. So that is something to notice to start with. Then he said, which I found out to be a real big red flag that I could see clearly that he was lying. Sorry, personally, that's what I will say it right out, that he was lying, is when he spoke, when I believe Scott asked him about that Fred said that he and Jody Sue were watching the searchers for 3 days, and that he left the area and he was away for 3 weeks or so. He said, I can't remember that. Now, guys, let's remember one thing. People can be forgetful, but if you left your home and you were away for a couple of weeks, you would remember exactly what day you left, because a big event happened. Summer was missing that day. He keeps on saying it could have been, I must have gone for a couple of weeks, I can't remember, maybe it was before Summer was missing, or maybe it was after Summer was missing. So I personally believe that Fred is telling the truth, although I haven't heard Fred's interviews. There are certain questions when he's been asked, just watch his eye movement. He keeps on looking. When he says, I don't remember, he looks up in the sky or he looks to the left. I personally believe Jody Sue Brown or whoever's sitting next to him is telling him or writing down something that he should say. The other red flag that I found out clearly from him is when he was asked if his daughter was part of the search and he said he can't remember. When somebody keeps on saying, I can't remember, I really don't believe it's that he can't remember. He just doesn't want the truth to come out. So he would rather pass it off by saying, I don't remember. His daughter and his son and Jody Sue Brown were part of the search, according to Jody Sue Brown. So if Andy came from work, why wouldn't he remember? I would remember, and I'm sure there are many other parents who are watching. Wouldn't you remember if your daughter or your son was part of the search? I would. Unless he was high on his own supply. I really have to say it. At the start of the interview, all the three people in the panel did a lovely job, honestly, but they were too busy asking about the tree clippers. I wouldn't have even bothered for a second to ask about that. Because, guys, let's remember the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the FBI and law enforcement have their skills. They know how to do the research. And that is the first people that they would have contacted. They would have contacted the company of the tree clippers, and they would have found out exactly how many or how much manpower was out there, what vehicles they were driving. I remember Don was using the tree clippers as excuse. He's blamed the dogs. He called the dogs stupid. He blamed the tree clippers. He called it abduction. He said there are many meth heads in the area. Let's remember, strangely enough, Andy looks like he is telling us the same lies Don and Jody Sue Brown are telling us. One other thing that I found really interesting is that I believe he was really honest in that part when he was asked, when did you believe it was abduction? He said later on in the evening. And then he says that he thought that maybe the children and Summer wandered in the woods. I believe that's a lie. Because Candice and Dawn has clearly said that in each and every interview that Summer would never wander off. We thought her with fear. We have added things to scare Summer so that she wouldn't leave the property. I found it really strange and really concerning, because I never knew that before, that Fred had said that Andy was away for 3 weeks. When he was asked that question, he said, I don't remember if it was, I can't remember how long I was away. Pay attention to that. And then he says, I can't remember if I was away a couple of weeks before summer was missing or after summer was missing. He would clearly remember that. So that shows me, and that makes me believe, that he and Jody Sue are more involved in this situation of summer being missing. For me personally, just studying the first 32 minutes and 27 seconds that I'm on, it looks like Andy is not by himself. Jody Sue Brown is definitely sitting there, or somebody else is sitting and telling him what to say. Especially notice when he put off the camera. Every time he puts off the camera is, I think, the time that whoever's sitting next to him allegedly is pumping him up with what to say and what not to say. I personally do not believe that Andy B is telling the truth. His whole expressions look like he's cooking up a story for us. He reminds me of Don. Don used to say, I can't remember. Neither does Andy. What a coincidence. You would remember if you're away for a couple of weeks, guys. You would. It's impossible that somebody says, I can't remember, because we're not talking about 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We're not talking about 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 hours. He was asked that he was away for 3 weeks. That's a long time. How can he say, I can't remember if it was before summer went missing or if it was after? That clearly shows that there's something there. I personally believe that after Jody Sue Brown, like children say, snitched and said, what's up? He's trying, and she's trying to build a story so that we forget what Jody Sue Brown said. Like they said, the cat is out of the box, out of the bag. Too late, Jody Sue Brown. Too late. They're trying to cover all this up. That's what I personally believe. And just that 32 minutes that I've been watching, I've written like 4 pages, which I intend to write it down properly and point out exactly where I believe doesn't make sense. Especially the part that Fred said that Jody Sue Brown and Andy B was sitting out for 3 days and watching the searchers. Okay, they could have been watching the searchers because they were scared for summer. They wanted summer to be found. I don't believe that, although I don't see what I see with him and Jody Sue Brown is the same thing that is really concerning me. There's no empathy. There's no emotions. Nothing. Another interesting thing is when the panel, one of the panel, they did a good job, asked him, I wish they asked him more important questions than the tree cutter. The tree cutter is not something I've really bothered about at the start because I know it's not one of the tree cutters, guys. Let's think about that. TBI, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, are professional people. They have all kind of behavior analysis there. Those are the first thing law enforcement does, because these are companies like plumbers, carpenters, whoever was working in Ben Hill, that is the first thing that they checked. TBI does their job well, and the FBI is involved too, guys. So I wouldn't have wasted my time on that, because that is by asking Andy about the tree cutters and asking Jody Sue Brown and Dawn and Candice, that is just giving them, I believe, never give a person a chance to run away with the narrative. We are feeding them with the narrative of tree cutters. Like the dogs that Dawn was blaming, saying that the dogs are stupid. Although I believe the dogs were smarter than Dawn and Andy and Jody Sue Brown. That's my personal opinion. According to Jose, according to Allison, according to Allison's mother, they said the dogs would run up if anyone comes up the hill. So these are not stupid dogs. These are very smart dogs that these people are trying to use as an excuse. The tree cutters, even if they were using private vehicles, guys, the tree cutters are taken into account by the TBI. If it was one of the tree cutters that did it, believe me, this case would have been long resolved. It isn't. It is these people who are involved in it. Andy, Jody Sue Brown, Dawn, Candice, Hunter, Allison are my suspects, always. Because they were clearly in the timeline. Jody Sue Brown said that Andy was giving Dawn and Candice drugs, and they were physically abusing their children. Let's be clear, trigger warning. Why would Jody Sue Brown say that? She would say that because she knew Andy was coming and she made a mistake. She thought that Andy is going to snitch on her, so she decided to snitch first. I won't be surprised, guys, if arrests come really soon. Now that Andy's been speaking, none of his story made sense, and I really, really wish... I don't like personally doing any interviews or anything, but I wish I was part of that panel. Because all the wrong questions was asked, not the right questions. The right questions was kind of asked, but not many of them. The tree clippers and all was waste of time to ask. He'll get away easily with that. But I'm happy that they asked him at what time he came home, because he said that he came home at 6:20. How could the police be there at 6:20, Andy and Jody Sue Brown? Summer was reported at 6:30 or 6:29. And isn't it interesting, somebody else who was sitting and watching the searchers and was hearing their helicopters and everything was Don Wells. He clearly said that, and I always took that as a red flag. Always. I used to wonder, why is he following the searchers? I don't understand, his baby girl is missing. But he said I was awake. We were awake till 5 in the morning watching and being online and all. They were online to check what narratives we have and how they could change it. They were watching the searchers to see if Summer would be found. IC usually says Summer is far away from the property unless they moved her later on, or unless Andy drove Summer somewhere. I believe there's a reason that law enforcement and the TBI are still focused on that place in Ben Hill, because I believe Summer is still there. Listening to Andy is the first time I can say that I really believe Summer's not far from the property. These people were sedating those poor children. And I won't be surprised if Andy was the one selling them drugs. I believe he panicked and he left for 3 weeks because Jody Sue Brown told him to go. I believe he went for 3 weeks. Maybe he took some out of the property. Maybe the red car that was seen allegedly could be Andy himself. There is something really fishy with Andy's interview, and for me, he's starting to look like he's one of my biggest main suspects. I will be doing more on about Andy. Since it's a very long interview, it's going to take me time to sit and analyze and pick up all the red flags. But I can see already there's enough there. And I really hope that the TBI is following this interview. Jody Sue Brown is, I personally believe, sitting near Andy, telling him what to say and telling him what not to say. Especially when he puts off the camera and even when the camera is on. He has no expressions in his face. He has no empathy, just like Jody Sue Brown. It's very scary. And people like that are the ones who usually have something to hide. Just watching 32 minutes just gave me the creeps, I won't lie. That's my personal meaning. That's my personal belief. I hope that TBI are keeping an eye on this guy, because he and Jody Sue Brown, I believe, are a big part with Dawn and Candice Wells. Even if something happened in the swimming hole, I believe the drugs that Summer was overdosed with, God forbid, was from these people. And I'm starting to really believe that the red car that was seen that day could have been Andy. Why did it take Andy so long to come and do this interview, guys? Sorry. I wonder why did it take him so long? It's because he was hiding something from the start. Jody Sue Brown, if you're watching this interview, I believe everything that you said about the children being sedated. I do believe everything you spoke about Summer looking sleepy and tired. Yes. And I believe there's more into the story with Andy and Jody Sue Brown. Either Andy is hiding for his son or for himself because it was his drugs, or for Jody Sue Brown or for his daughter. I don't see any emotions. I don't see any sympathy. He can't even get his timeline straight. Remember, first at the start of the interview, he said 6:15, guys. He said he came home at 6:15. Then he said he came home at between 6:20 to 6:30. And he kept on saying 6:20. Pay attention to that. So if he came home at 6:30 and they were searching for Summer, how could he have seen law enforcement? Impossible. Law enforcement, you all can check the TBI's website. Summer was reported at 6:30, Andy. So get your timeline right. This is really sad. Really sad that it's been 13 months and nothing has happened in this case. I'm sure TBI is working behind the scenes. I don't doubt that. But I think that TBI's job is harder because of Jody Sue Brown and Andy. All the lies are starting to catch up with them. And what Jody Sue Brown said about the children being sedated, I really believe is true. I believe Andy was giving them the drugs. I believe he panicked. I personally believe, that's my belief, that is the reason he left for 3 weeks. It makes more sense. I never knew that Fred said that Andy and Jody Sue Brown was watching law enforcement doing their searches for 3 days. But hearing that, it makes more sense. The other person who was watching the searches was Candice and Dawn, obviously, because Dawn said clearly that he was watching the helicopters 4:35 in the morning at night, yeah? So these people must have overdosed Summer. That is, I believe, is starting to make more sense. That is why there's a gag order on the case. It's strange that Andy said that we didn't think it was an abduction till late on in the evening. Obviously, he knew there wasn't an abduction because it was more like there was an overdose. Allegedly. So I don't know. People can believe in what they want to believe. I'm sure many people will say, no, Andy can't remember things. No. Usually people who can't remember are liars. People who can't remember, unless either they're on drugs or they're sedated or they're forgetful or they're dementia or they have amnesia, people would remember. Especially important events like a 5-year-old girl missing. Of course, you're going to say, I don't remember exactly what time it was, I can't remember this and that, because you're lying. I don't mean, I mean Andy and Jody Sue Brown. He said he couldn't remember if his daughter was part of the search. Wouldn't y'all remember if your child was in the search? I would definitely remember if my children was in any part of the search. And he was trying to continue with the tree cutters and all that, saying, yeah, they could have been driving different vehicles. The tree cutters are not important. They just wasted 10 minutes talking about tree cutters. Tree cutters are the first thing the TBI will check. The weather, tree cutters, road traffic. And when law enforcement came at 6:30. But Andy B said that law enforcement were there before he was there. Strange. Another red flag. Do you all remember that Don Wells said the same too? Do you remember, guys, that Don told Chris McDonough on the telephone interview? Didn't he say, oh, strange, I thought I was there before law enforcement? Why does Andy B's theory sounds like Don Wells? It's because they all are involved. I'm not hiding it anymore. This is foul play to the max. This is foul play, guys. There was never an abduction that happened. I wonder where Andy B went to for 3 weeks. And I wonder what or who he took with him. I wonder where Grandis went, although she said she went to Wisconsin, and I wonder what she took with her. Anyone could have taken Summer. But I really don't believe that they drove Summer out of those areas because law and enforcement are really very busy on that area. Maybe Andy left for a couple of weeks to hide stash the rest of his drugs. I hate to say that, allegedly. But something is not right here. And I believe the Jody Sue theory of the children being sedated. This is a clear red flag for me that Andy B said he was there before law enforcement. He said that when he came, the law enforcement was there. So did Don say the same thing, that he believed that he was there before law enforcement. That's what he told Chris. But then in the other interview, which was later on with the behavior panel, he said, "Oh, I believe there could have been 1 or 2 cars of law enforcement there before me," because he knew that we clocked on, the public clocked on to his BS. So let's keep a closer eye on Andy B, Jody Sue Brown, Allison, Hunter, Dawn, and Candace. Maybe Summer did not come back from the swimming hole. Maybe when Candace was driving and she was asking, "Is her arm up?" and the person said no, she said, "Oh, I thought so." I believe really that's when she was getting, sorry to say, I won't say rid of Summer. That's when she was getting Summer far away from the property. I really wish I knew where in Tennessee that picture was taken, because I believe that could lead us to where Candace drove. Anyway, guys, please like, share, and subscribe. I will be back with a couple of other clips because I intend to analyze this interview deeply, because I don't trust Andy B. He's another Jody Sue Brown. He was the police and law enforcement. The 911 dispatcher, guys, you can check, was at 6:30 in the evening. And he said he came home at 6:20 and they were searching for Summer. And he said when he came, he said law enforcement was there. Law enforcement couldn't have been there at 6:20 when Summer was reported missing at 6:30. So Andy B, if you're watching, straighten up your story. Like they say, shape up or ship out. All of these people are lying about the timeline. That is, I believe, the reason that TBI does not believe Jody Sue Brown's abduction theory. And Andy said that we thought that Summer and the boys were playing in the woods. Dawn clearly said Summer wouldn't leave the yard. I don't believe they were playing in the woods. I believe they were sedated and something happened. Because the picture we saw, Summer did not look healthy. She did not look well. And it made more sense that there was an overdose involved. I hate to say that, but that's the truth, according to me. Guys, this is for entertainment purpose only. Please write down in the comments if I'm thinking too deep, but I don't think so. I believe everyone should study this interview and any other interviews that Andy has made, and Jody Sue, and Dawn. Those 3 people's interviews need to be compared together because they all are a fake abduction. Guys, look after yourselves. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.